Greetings. My name is Dr. Waddell Brooks, Sr., your host, and this is Community Forum. Ladies and gentlemen, we're very fortunate to have with us Mr. George Moore, Jr. He's a servant of God. He's a founder and executive director of Legacy Reentry Foundation in Lake County. He is someone that you should know. Good evening, Mr. Moore.
Good evening, Dr. Brooks. I'm excited to be here.
And we're very happy that you've taken time from your busy schedule to be with us on the Community Forum to let Lake County know who you are. Lake County is approximately 750,000 people. But after this show, if you have not been known all over the world, you will be after this show, because you can go on drbrooks.tv online and watch the show.
Excellent.
I want you to start off by telling our listening audience a little bit about your personal and professional background.
Well, sure. First of all, thank you for having me again. It's an honor. I'm a North Chicago native. You know, there's no hospital in North Chicago, so I was born in Waukegan. My parents separated when I was young, and so I ended up in California, and that's where everything went downhill. In the Bay Area, Oakland, where I grew up, Richmond, California in particular. Graduated from El Cerrito High School, and just got around the environment that wasn't good for me and became something that God didn't intend for me to become. Back and forth from here to the Chicagoland region, of course, here. And California made me something, sculpted me into something that really wasn't good for anybody, especially my family. And so I ended up being incarcerated. I tell people all the time, check IDs. You know, when you're young, I was 19 years old. A young lady didn't know her age. They exaggerated a case. That's why I fight the criminal justice system that is so corrupt. And ended up in the system for 2 years and 3 months. Whereas people with that kind of case, something could happen to them. I gave my life to Christ, and it ended up being camp for me. Ended up preaching the gospel in prison, in jail, some of the worst places you could possibly imagine, Menard, Graham, Joliet. I was even in Lake County Jail, which of course now I teach in the same jail I was once locked up in. And so I'm excited about what God is doing. Got out, needed reentry resources for myself. Went to every organization in the area. I got the resources that I needed, and then I began to help other people. And finally, the book that I wrote while I was in jail, I got out and I wanted to share that same resource with other people. I wanted to get resources and become a resource for others. And got into the Lake County Jail, and whereas now I'm a chaplain there and teaching, and then also used the reentry resources that I got and created my own organization. Well, God created it through me, and used me to found Legacy Reentry Foundation with my wife. And I'm excited about what we're doing in the Waukegan area, and a lot's going on there, and I'm just excited about what God is doing.
Is there a typical day as a chaplain at the Lake County Jail?
A typical day? Oh, you describe one.
Right.
Well, each chaplain, I'm only one of many, and each chaplain has different duties. I happen to have a class that was given to me called TED Talks, Technology, Entertainment, Design, where we use that as an innovative way to share whatever beliefs we have. Presidents use them, speakers use them. I use this class, a 1-hour class, to share with about 30 some odd men about reentry resources and my own personal story. And so I use that as, you know, it's funny, I walk in and they don't know who I am, and I have to yell and tell them and announce to them, hey, I've been in here, I'm formerly incarcerated, got out, became a success story, let me tell you my story. And so they listen. Some of the guys come out of their cell. This happens a lot. There's a high turnover rate, and they'll come down, whereas they would lock up because they don't want to hear you. Once I loudly shout to them who I am and what I'm about, they'll come down, they'll come to the class. And so I got about 30 some odd guys now consistently. With the turnover rate, they still keep coming.
I might mention this, if you don't mind, Mr. Moore, that you were one of the first graduates of Tots and Tyler's Daycare Center in Chicago, right?
Yes.
And I don't know whether you still have your cap and gown or not, but
well, I'm excited to say that I am alumni Tots and Tyler's. You know, you and your lovely wife, Miss Brooks, have taught me since I was a little child. And so this is an amazing relationship and full circle.
Now, you were the keynote speaker at the NAACP Lake County Annual Fight for Freedom Fund dinner Sunday, November 11th, 2018, at the Illinois Beach Resort and Conference Center in Zion, Illinois. And you had a message there that took the audience, they were overwhelmed by your message. But tell our listening audience about the message that you promulgated to them.
Sure. I was excited to be asked to speak as the keynote. And of course, the NAACP has been doing things for years beyond my lifetime. And so what I spoke about was the message that I had spoken about was a call to action. And it dealt with a younger generation like a Kalief Browder, who was incarcerated at the age of 16 for stealing a backpack that he did not steal, being incarcerated on Rikers Island, left with PTSD, killing himself, and then his lifeless body beating up against the side of his mother's house, and his mother saying to herself at his funeral, it was not a person that killed Kalief Browder, this was an entire system. And so based on that premise, I talked about the Pettus Bridge and voter rights privileges and some of the things that we had to fight for. And what I was trying to do is get people to a call to action. Basically, whatever your position is in life, whatever God has called you to, whatever lane, for lack of better words, that you're in, you have to go with it with all your heart, because we only have one life to live, and you affect not only yourself, but you affect somebody else's life. Kalief Browder now has, him, of course, being deceased, his mother's deceased as well, but before she passed, she was able to start a movement that now has Rikers Island closing. It's not closed yet, but it's now closing. And so his life meant something. And she started a legacy, which is what I believe all of us should grasp hold to. Do something that is beyond you to help somebody else. So that's what the premise of the message is about. There's so much involved in the message, but I'm excited that they were receptive and that partnerships were established out of that evening. God placed all of us on this earth for a purpose. We're here for a purpose-driven life. He just didn't put us here just to be here, right? Yes.
Right? For instance, I guess in the book of the Bible in Ephesians, I guess he made some prophets, some apostles, some evangelists, some pastors, and some teachers. And so it's up to us to find out what our purpose is, right?
It is, and I believe that God is so kind and merciful that he gives us little breadcrumbs, so that we might get it. We run into little clues and hints that let us know who we are, who we should be. Nobody, I believe, comes out the womb. Not too many people come out the womb knowing exactly what their purpose is and this is what I should be doing. It's a series of events that happen that God allows to happen in your life to affect you. And because some of us are stubborn, like myself, I was stubborn. He allows circumstances and situations to get you to where you best fit in life. And it's up to you to be receptive to that. And once you are, you're not only good for yourself, but you're good for others.
We're here on our epitaph. We leave this world at the date of birth and dash date of death. But it's what you do between that dash what counts as far as the law is concerned, right?
I believe that. I believe, as Ephesians you mentioned, spoke about, we're creating for God's workmanship. We are God's workmanship. We are created for a specific work. I believe, like the prophet Jeremiah, before the foundations of the world, God had ordained that there's something for you to do within that dash. And so, you don't have fulfillment. You're not satisfied until you find out what you're here to do. And I believe that on the streets and young people and just even in business and corporate America, people are not satisfied today because they really want to know. You mentioned that book, Purpose Driven Life. That was one of the highest selling books, not just for the Pentecostals in the church, for the secular world. Rappers were buying that book because everybody wants to know who they are and where they belong. And God has ordained for you to have that void, that God-shaped void within you until you figure out, until you're receptive to what he created you to do.
Well, what about the importance of entrepreneurship? We have people that say, well, they didn't give us a job and so forth. But what we should be doing is creating jobs for our youngsters, right?
That's powerful. I believe the Bible when it says that your gifts will make room for you and bring you before great men. I believe that everyone has a gift or a talent. Even if you're working for somebody else, I believe you should use some of those resources to fund what God has placed in you, even if it's painting, if it's something silly as being, I tell people in the jail all the time, some of the guys are silly and they're comedians. And I say, well, why not get paid for being goofy? There are millionaires who are comedians.
Okay.
Craft that, why don't you become an entrepreneur in the sense of using the gift that God has given you as a stream of income? And actually people go after money when they should go after their gift or go after God who gives you the gift. Okay. Money just comes. Money will come because you do what you love with excellence, then the resources will come behind that. And I think sometimes people put the cart before the horse. And so we have to know who we are and what our gifts are, and then God will fund that mission.
If they would think that I have never, you speak about being a comedian, but this is a fact, I have never seen a Brinks truck behind a hearse yet.
I haven't either, and I don't think I'll see it either, not in my lifetime.
So you could try to earn all the material things, but you may take it to the cemetery, but you can leave it there.
There are millionaires and billionaires committing suicide. You see it in the news all the time, and in the holiday season, people are not satisfied. Addiction, depression, all these things come about because they want something to cover up what's on the inside, something to fill that void, and we've all been there. And so, until we find what God has created us, not just to do, but the person he's created us to be. I think that, just being a son of God, a daughter of God, people should get wrapped up in that. We want to do things for God, but it's amazing when you really are excited about being with God or being in partnership with him. Everything else is just icing on the cake. And God said he'll add those things to you if you put the kingdom of God first.
I spoke about entrepreneurship, but you're an entrepreneur. You want to tell us how you got involved and what do you do?
So sure. I started off with a book called The Reason I Give Him Praise in the Midst of Madness. I started off with another book actually before that, Held Captive for His Captivity, wrote that in prison. Okay. I tell people all the time, write while you're in jail. You'll never have this kind of time again. And so when you get out, I got out and I began to, my wife helped me with this. She's my backbone. Regina Moore has just been my backbone. Okay. And so she's helped me to see that there's some things that I can do to be productive as far as monetarily. Okay. And so I went to an extravaganza one time and I didn't have enough books and I printed off some books from Office Depot. And I said, well, I only got 10. She said, well, won't you do something called a voucher? I said, what is that? She said, basically somebody can purchase your book now and pay for it later. I said, okay. So then I don't have all the books though. She said, that's fine. They'll purchase the books and you'll pick them up later and bring them to them. And actually you can use some of that money to purchase the books and get. I said, that's a great idea. And so since then, I had this, when the pit bull tastes blood. And so, God gave me this drive to really, it's hard to work for somebody when you're working for Jesus. Because you're so passionate and it takes up your whole day. And so God has used my books, of course, with the organization that we have. It's a nonprofit organization, but God has allowed us to be able to give back to the community. And it's funny, the community is given to the organization and the organization is living off the community. And we're sitting here like, okay, we would love to be a blessing. But I found out if you take care of God, he'll take care of you. And God somehow, every now and then, he'll drop something on us. He'll He'll bless us just so you can make rent, just so you can live, just so you can get to the next. And we're excited about the ministry being taken care of, but because we're taking care of that, God just takes care of us.
We spoke about your the entrepreneurship. What type of items are you? Do you get contributions, or how do you get your items?
Mainly, the most that the Lord has blessed me with, I go around speaking. And just telling my story, using the book as a catalyst, and of course the organization. And I just want to draw attention to what God has called us to do so we can get the resources to help people. And by way of that, that has blessed me more than anything. Mm-hmm. And so, as you know, I tell people all the time, imagine going and working for a building or organization or a group of people for, I guess, for a couple weeks trying to get a check, or you can do that in 1 hour. Mm-hmm. And telling your story. So I tell people to perfect their story and perfect who they are. And once people buy into you, people do not buy products, they buy you. Okay. And people are concerned with you as a person. So once you develop your story and tell people who you are and what you're doing, they get involved in you. And by way of that, then the products just are a blessing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, we have a lot of difficulty with challenges, I should say, with youth in the community nationwide. But I was thinking about love. If they would love themselves, they would love others. But how can you love others if you don't love yourself?
You know what? That's
another challenge.
It's a challenge because history tells us that we don't love ourselves. And there's some reasons why. Historically, that we don't love ourselves. I think most of us, you can Google and find out historically what has happened to us and why we don't love one another. Mm-hmm. We were the first ones to sell each other off as a commodity.
Okay.
And to this day, we still do it. And yet, you know, when I walk in the liquor store, I walk in the store around just to get something for my wife or whatever, there's certain looks that you get in certain communities that you don't get in other communities. Mm. And it's because of what I call or consider self-hatred. We don't love each other. And it's trickled down through time. Mm-hmm. And so, as I said, historically, there's a reason for that. And I think that once we find out who we are in God, mm-hmm. then we can see who we are on a practical level, our lineage and where we come from. And then I think we'll treat each other with more respect, but it starts off with education. I think that the youth now are more educated than ever. I think they're going beyond they know how to use Google and type and YouTube better than any of us do, you know. And so I think that we have a more educated people now than ever before. Mm-hmm. And I think that the millennials and the next generation are going to begin to teach us how to love one another. Once they find out more, as they're learning more, who they are.
Mm-hmm. You spoke about prison system. Nelson Mandela, while he was in prison for 27 years, and he prepared for his release. He knew he was going to be released. He ended up being the president of South Africa, right?
Yes, the same nation that incarcerated him for 27 years mm-hmm. of preparation on dirt, gravel floors. I tell that story to people all the time, especially in Lake County Jail. You have it sweet compared to what Nelson Mandela had. Mm-hmm. But you know, we know that everyone knows we live in a corrupt criminal justice system. Mm-hmm. We deal with it every day. You know, when you're talking about helping somebody to change, mm-hmm. It's called the Department of Corrections. We're trying to correct, but you can't correct somebody. I believe you give somebody 50 years. I think after 5 years, okay. I might get it. I might get it after 5. So we have these exorbitant laws of, you know, we're incarcerating people for long periods of time. Okay. And then once they get in the system, over 2/3 of them return back within the first 3 years of being incarcerated. They recidivate. And then of course, you know, we have the 5%, we're accountable for 5% of the world's population.
Okay.
But 19 over 22% exactly of the world's prisoners. America is accountable for 22% of the world's prisoners. 4.4, which you could say is 5% of the world we account for in population. So we just have this asphyxiation with incarcerating people. We love to just incarcerate and punish people for the same crimes that you did when you were in high school. And you wouldn't want your son or daughter to spend the rest of their lives. But when someone is incarcerated, once they get in the system, they are locked up for the rest of their life. Because even if they get, scot-free or they get probation, parole, anything like that, they're still in the system. Most names are. You can still look it up. And so, and that has to deal with your employment, and it just affects your entire life. And so we are infatuated with incarcerating people. And I believe that, like Nelson Mandela, if we come to the place where, we can overcome by the grace of God we talked about earlier, if we get that in our mindset and educate ourselves with the Word of God, I believe that we can now take those resources and become a resource and say, you know what, I don't care if this nation incarcerates me, I can become the president of the same nation that locked me up.
Speaking of the president, I think about President Clinton. He was the one that issued an executive order, 3 strikes and you're out.
Yeah.
Now, isn't that just enhancing the prison system?
Yeah.
There must have been. Now these are presidents and these are congressional minds that that we elect and hope they come up with some good solutions. But 3 strikes you out doesn't sound like a good solution.
It's not, and he has since apologized for that, because, and he should, rightfully so, because this goes back to Reaganomics and Reagan, Nancy Reagan with, this is your brain on drugs, being tough on crime, and we wanted to be tough. But actually it affected the black community, because for crack cocaine, you get a higher sentence than for dope. And it's just for, a cooked rock, you can spend more time than for powder cocaine.
Okay.
And so this has gone, we start out with Reagan, and then it just, since then, has moved up the scale. The new Jim Crow, which is, some people call it the Bible of mass incarceration. It's something Michelle Alexander deals with it really good, that we need to understand where this all started and why it's still here. This is a money-making business. This is not correcting anything. They're making money off of bodies. It's the commodity, like cattle. They're making money, and it doesn't matter. As a matter of fact, it's also trickling over into, it's black and white issue. We know that. We know that primarily black males are incarcerated at a higher rate, more than white males. We know it starts in school. That's where they have the prison to school pipeline. But yet at the same time, it also deals with money. Because if you have, white or black, a good amount of money, you can get off as opposed to somebody who doesn't. So now you're dealing with poverty, and it's just the system is corrupt. So when somebody says, well, I just leave it to the justice system, that's not actually a true statement. You're not leaving it to the justice system, because it's not justice. And so when we know that now, everyone knows that. If you're in college or you're not, you know that. So why are we allowing this? Because it makes money.
You mentioned why we're allowing this, but when we look at the top of our government involved in the type of crime and getting away with it, they make the laws and they make them so that they are free from, the punishment.
Yeah, Jesus, he said, give that whatever belongs to Caesar, give that to Caesar. We're still, Romans 13 talks about respecting authority. We respect authority, we pray for authority. But Jesus was also radical in this sense.
Okay.
Jesus wasn't going around talking about people and the problems of the day. He created a movement. That's what I subscribe to. I talk about statistics because you got to research them and know them. We live in the evidence-based practice field, with nonprofits. Okay, so we know the statistics. But at the end of the day, are we just talking about the problem or creating a solution? Jesus got up and said, let me get 12 of these guys
right.
and start a movement and make some things. He didn't complain. Okay, you're doing wrong. He knew he was doing wrong.
Okay.
But he got up and he made change, and that's what I subscribe to. I want to be around people that, listen, I know what they're doing, but I don't have time to talk about that all day. Let's create a program. Let's go get our youth. Let's build up the millennials. Let's empower some people. While you're talking about the problem, I'm creating some jobs. I don't have time. Let's make some moves.
Well, what about racial barriers? Should we be working to try to break down the racial barriers?
Absolutely. You know, I don't. You're hitting on some topics, right? I don't understand how you can say you're a believer in the Lord Jesus Christ, and you have the love of God, and be biased towards someone because of any condition of skin, condition of their health, condition of their living environment. It doesn't work. You can't have both. If you have the love of God, you should have love. You should have unconditional love towards people. Not saying that you're perfect. We're not perfect, but we should move towards that end. And so I believe as believers, we should be the first ones to say we want a multicultural environment in churches, in ministries. I don't care if you're Black, Chinese, I don't care. I'm different, but I don't care if you murder somebody. You come up to me talking about you murdered somebody. Okay, so what's next? What are we talking about? I'm not flinching because I'm at a place now where I've seen too much. I've seen the worst of the worst, especially in Menard. And I preached the gospel to a guy, and the guy told me, I've done too much dirt. It's too late for me. Why is it too late for you? Who told you that? And we're at a place now, who cares what you did? That's what I believe. And so I think we have to get beyond race. If we're believers especially, we have to get beyond being so critical towards other belief systems. I know what I believe, but I can sit down with a Muslim all day, a 5%er, or any gangbanger. I have no problem sitting down with you and discussing the issue. And I don't have to get loud either. Because if you know what you're talking about, you don't have to get, what are we talking about? How do you let them know?
How do you?
I think that you...
I know maybe community forum is one of the ways.
This is one of the ways. But I think honestly, my wife says this all the time, and I believe it. Success is the best answer. When you do something well, you don't have to brag about it. You don't have to. People will come to you. If you get up and you're passionate about something, say for instance, I'll use the nursing homes again. You're passionate about nursing homes and you're effective in that area and God has graced you for that, people will come to you for that help, as opposed to you trying to draw people to you and trying to get some support that maybe that's not even an area that you're excellent in yet. I think that you have to really embrace, again, your purpose, and everything you're looking for, it'll come to you. Do it with excellence. And people, even if it's on a small level, I consider myself on a low level. But what God has given me to do, I'm passionate about it. And so God will draw the people that are supposed to be with you, he'll draw them to you.
I'm sure that many of our listening audience can identify with this. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now if I wasn't passionate about it.
Listen, Dr. Brooks, I've been hearing about you, sir. I've never seen you didn't campaign. Yeah, I didn't see you, you weren't passing out cards. You didn't. I know about Dr. Brooks because you've been doing this in the community effectively for quite some time. And so people actually told me about you and said, man, you need to talk to Dr. Brooks. Well, because why? Because he does it effectively. And that it is what it is. Success is the best answer.
One of my main campaigners is Willie Brooks. I mentioned that
General Willie Brooks told me about you, and here we are today. And listen, Bible says you should know them by their fruit. He came to me and told me. So you didn't come to me and say, George, I would like for you. You need to be on the show. You didn't have to. I came to you.
I mentioned the name Willie Brooks because he's been on the show many times, and our listening audience is well aware of Willie
Yes.
Brooks, on a regular basis. As a matter of fact, in the near future, I'll have him back again. Beautiful
Yes.
person, know. But, well, what are your plans, say like 5 years from now, 10 years from now?
Our goals are for Legacy to become self-sufficient in the sense of right now it's a hub of resources. We have several programs going on that we're excited about. Instead of playing defense, we're playing offense. We started Youth and Prevention. We have State Rep Rita Mayfield on our board, and she's over the youth area. Adrice and Amani, young youth pioneers. My wife is really heading that up and creating a syllabus for us, and we're starting back. We just graduated a class and sent them to a Sox game for graduation. By the way, the Sox won that night. But we're excited about that. And so we're heading up our Youth and Prevention. We're starting up RSG, which is a reentry, a support group, which we're going to have leaders from the community teach this, both men and women. I'm excited about that. And of course, Reentry Uncut, we started a talk show, and then God is really sending support for that. We want to give people a voice with reentry issues, and now we're going to be here with you as neighbors on Comcast 17. And so,
Welcome aboard.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And you were instrumental in making that happen. And so, we're a community service site, and we're growing with that. We're partnered with Midway Staffing. We're giving out jobs every Tuesday and Wednesday. And so we have the numbers on our community closet. We're giving out clothing, free quality clothing. We served over 237 people within, that was since July, and March, July. And then that's every other week. So that's a lot of people on paper. Some of them didn't sign in. And so what we're looking to do within the next 5 years is be self-sufficient to whereas we'll have transportation for them. Right now we're a hub in the sense that if we don't have housing, which we don't have a house for people, we know where to send people to. We would like to have housing, our own personal transportation in the next 5 years. That's our goal. And so it's growing to that level. We're outgrowing the small little office that we have. I call it small, it's a blessing. And clothes just are coming. And so God is, I believe, going to give us another location. And so I'm super excited about what Legacy is doing and what God has called us to do.
You think it's, I should ask about the importance of having role models in the community for youth to follow.
Yes. I have role models. And the Bible talks about marking the perfect man. The end of that man is peace, or pay attention to what he does. I've got so many mentors, in my life that I can pull on. I've got a coach. I have people. And so when people look at me for anything, I'm always pointing up because God sent people to me. And so I don't consider myself as anybody, but I do know that I'm connected to somebody. And I believe that our youth, once they see that we're shining the light of Christ and not our own light, they'll be attracted to that light. And then they'll want to, maybe be like the moon, reflect that light themselves. And so I think that's what the youth are looking for. They're not looking for stars and celebrities because they know they're just as smart now. They know that the celebrities aren't happy, but they're looking for people who are content, passionate. Youth, the millennials that I know, they don't care what you have accomplished or who. Are you passionate? Like, I want to be around passion. Like, I want to be around somebody that, that enjoys their life. Who wants to be around a crabby millionaire? I want to be around somebody that knows who they are, knows where they're going, content and doing that thing, making it happen. And that's what the youth want. And if they see that in us, then that'll make them get up and say, you know what, if he did it, I could do that too.
In the beginning, did you survey the local area to find out how critical the services that you're providing that are needed?
I did. It just like a business, before you start a business, you should know your unique market or your niche. You should know I want to call it competition. They call it that. I don't consider competition, but you should know other people who are doing what you're doing in the region. So I first started out with Fist for MMA Striving Together. Joe Smith, who is the founder of that organization, called me personally. I met him at a Coalition to Reduce Recidivism meeting. I was there trying to see about resources. Waukegan Township, Miss Patricia Jones had been a blessing to me, and that's how Joe and I met. And so I knew about those two organizations, and he asked me to become their spiritual advisor on the board. Before they even started, they got an office on Water Street. I found out others who were doing some of recidivism work, like Anthony McIntyre, and there's not actually too many in this region. Those are and also another pastor who's doing another work. I don't know if he's still doing that, but he's Latino. But I know who's doing what in this region, so as I don't cross over and try to, I guess, recreate the wheel. And so I consider we are a ministry. And so what we do is we give people resources so they can become a resource to others. Legacy, if I give you a job and you're not helping somebody else get a job, that's not what we're about. You need to go somewhere else for that. But we want you to become a full, total man or woman so that you can help somebody else get on your feet. That's what we're about. And so I found out that our niche is of empowering lives with second chance resources. And when we empower lives, we empower people to become a resource. And I know who's in the area doing that. And what we do now is because we know who we are, we can partner effectively. We're not slamming each other in the head like, oh, I'm doing this now, well, I'm doing this now. We just fit perfectly. And I'm telling you, I know who's doing this in the community, and we are really fitting together really good.
Mm-hmm. I'm really excited about what it keeps inspiring you to do more, you know. This is fantastic, and I know your mother's she's an entrepreneur too, right?
Yeah,
in her own niche. Yeah.
Glowmore Cosmetics. My stepmother Gloria Moore is in Gurnee, Illinois, with Glowmore Cosmetics, and she's been doing this I think longer than I've been alive.
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
I think they started in their basement. So, but and now she's getting ready to start. Actually, she started her own school now.
Oh.
For cosmetics, and so and she's doing so much. But it's in our family. You know, we all work hard. We're all workers, and you know, it's just good to see. You know, you can't be something that you don't see, and so you know, to see her, she made it. Now it's like, you know what, mom can do it. You know, my mother, my natural mother, she went back and got her degree in her 50s.
Wow.
You know, in the city here in Chicago. And so it lets me know that you can get up and you can do it. My father worked for ComEd for over 30 years and retired. And I mean, I saw him working the 16-hour shifts.
Okay.
And so when you see it, you can be it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So re-entry is a passion for you, right? So, and you know it will work.
Well, I'm a prime example, so I know that much. And not only that, I consider re-entry not just to be something that organizations do for people who are formerly incarcerated. Re-entry to me is a ministry. Mm-hmm. And so we use the words second chance a lot. Mm-hmm. Not that there's only one second chance. The word second means more than one. And so we believe that you're always going to have more than one chance with God. And we want to provide relevant resources by way of second chance opportunities. And that's what we're doing. And ever since we started, God has been blowing this thing up. And what I mean by blowing it up, we've seen, this is on paper, we've had as many as 8 people come in one day for jobs and 8 people start the next day. Mm-hmm. We've had a room full of people come and get clothing that they didn't have before, quality clothing, some with tags still on it. We've graduated some with community service hours, whereas they could have went back to jail. And so, you know, courts mandated. I'm seeing it happen, and I can tell you right now, I'm not a millionaire at this juncture in my life, but I am so content and so I'm full of purpose. I feel like God has finally placed me in my water. When you're in your water, you're in your element, like a fish. Like you've seen a fish out of water. And I've been that, flapping around. And I'm telling you right now, I'm just flowing downstream, and it feels good.
Well, if people in our listening audience want to make contributions to your foundation, how would they do it?
Definitely. I don't deal with the money, so I'm gonna have my accountant talk to you. No, no, we have a treasurer. We totally legitimate. What you would do is you would go to our website, www.legacyreentryfoundation.org. I believe it is at the beginning of the show. I believe the address is showing now to where we're at if you want to personally come in. And but if you go to any Chase Bank and say, I want to donate to Legacy Reentry Foundation, you can do that. And they'll be happy to accept that. And of course, we'll be happy to receive that from you. And it is tax exempt. And so you can get a tax write-off by the end of the year for being a blessing. And so we really need your support because we're doing, you can see what we're doing. You can see the numbers, you can see the people. So we have nothing to hide. It's there for you to see. And it feels good to come back and say, I put my money or my work or my efforts, even if you want to volunteer, I put my life into something that's actually making a difference.
Mm-hmm. And we know that prayer changes things, right? And I would encourage everyone, youngsters, elderly, or whoever, to try prayer. And prayer changes things.
Listen, I got quite a few testimonies on that, but
right.
I could tell you from experience that prayer is just a conversation with God. Mm-hmm. And when you know that you can talk to God and he's listening, it's something else. And you want to be in the right standing with God. If you're out there today and you're watching this and you don't feel comfortable talking to God, you don't feel like you can say our Father because you've seen your natural father do whatever, let me tell you, God is not like your natural father. He's much more than that. And once you see him as somebody you can have a relationship with, even though you can't physically see him, to know that he hears you, I think that it'll make you convert, it'll make you repent, it'll make you say, you know what, I can't, right now, if you're smoking weed, if you're drinking, whatever, it'll make you say, you know what, this isn't fulfilling, I need more.
I noticed on the NAACP Fight for Freedom Fund down the flyer, it states that we can't rest now. The stakes are still too high.
Yeah.
But that's one avenue you take. But I see you're not taking that route. You're taking a more peace route.
Oh,
to get there.
Well, I would say this. Not exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I think that people view confrontation differently. I'm the most confrontational person you could possibly imagine. Mm-hmm. I will definitely confront you if I have an issue with you. I'll come see you. People know that about me. Mm-hmm. But it's the way you confront an issue. I'm not going to complain. If you won't work with me, I know that God will allow me to go ahead and build a building. You won't let me have a building here, I'll go build one. And I'll smile and walk away. I won't stand out in front of your building and tell you what you need to do for me. What I'm gonna do is go build a building right next to yours. Mm-hmm. So okay. that I take a different approach. I think that we all have different approaches, and so to say that, when we say the stakes are too high, mm-hmm. It's about you getting up and doing what God called you to do. But if you're sitting there saying, yep, that's a bad situation, them people, they ain't right, that's bad, and you're not doing anything that God called you to do to change that, that's a problem. But you don't have to do what I'm doing. You don't have to go into the jails. You don't have to deal with the formerly incarcerated, create an organization. You don't have to do any of that. But you do have to get up and say, God, what have you called me to do to make a difference? I think that is being confrontational when you get up and do whatever God called you to do.
Mm-hmm. I noticed they call a roll. They started out with Emmett Till, mm-hmm. And there's a laundry list of names, and I guess it's still happening.
Yeah. When you think of not only Emmett Till, as I mentioned earlier, Kalief Browder, mm-hmm. and so many other names, as they have all the faces there on their flyer, mm-hmm. those people are us. And, Kalief Browder was 16, and I think that when we realize that you can get cut off at an early age or even at another age, you know, Sandra Brown, you can get cut off at any age. I think that when you realize that's me, then you get up and say, you know what? It has to be a burden in you. Say, I got to do something. Some people are making more. I guess you could say they're touching more people writing a book than some people who are with a microphone. So you can never say my way is the way. Some people are touching more people driving the car around and yelling out the window, as opposed to some people just writing a book and just saying, hey, you know, I'm an author. You don't know unless it's God's way. And so I think that we have to realize, we have to first be indignant about what we see, and then don't just get up. You mentioned prayer. Don't just get up and do some stuff, because you're going to add to the problem. Pray, God, what am I supposed to do? And when God gives you something, I promise you, nobody can deny it's God. When God gives you, now, I have done stuff, and then I sat back and looked and said, that wasn't, I shouldn't, you know. And I've learned now, I'm at a stage now where that's why I don't just, even if you want me to do it, I'm going to pray first. And when God makes it happen, you won't even be able to say nothing against it because the evidence is there.
We want to continually encourage everyone. We keep leaning on the youth, but everyone to register and vote, and also not only register, but have voter education, and also voting. The registration, education, and voting. It does make a difference.
I was excited to find out that there were some incarcerated that were voting, you know, in southern states. And people don't know, especially being incarcerated, that you do have rights and privileges. Even, you know, Attorney Tory Newsom and I talked about your rights and privileges. A lot of people don't know what their rights are when they're pulled over. And so it's important. Education is key. Education is so key. Find out if I can vote. Find out if I can vote early. Find out where I'm registered at. Do I have the proper identification? All those things you can get up, and I'm a big fan of self-education. If you don't know, YouTube it. But there's no way you should not know. I'm gonna find out, you know, and that's how I feel. You know, we have to get up and look and be educated or self-educate ourselves. The information is out there. So I believe as far as voting rights and privileges, nobody should be ignorant.
Okay, well, we have the NAACP make the right choice, there's no doubt about it. I didn't even know about it. I guess since you left Tots and Toddlers many years ago, I didn't know what had happened to you. You know what I mean? But seeing you now, and also you mentioned about your location. Is this your individual private location, business location, entrepreneurship location on Belvedere?
That is our business location. We consider our nonprofit a business as well, even though it's nonprofit. We do for-profit work in certain areas, but we don't draw attention to promoting ourselves. So, for instance, we will speak, and you can donate if you will, and then that money's going to go back and allow us to get resources so we can continue doing what we're doing. But we're in that office, 2835 Belvedere Road, Suite 309 in Waukegan, 60085. Come see us. If you know anything about Waukegan, we're right behind Gojo's and the DMV, and we'll be happy to receive you there. But our office is there for you. We have a lot of stuff for you. We want to be a blessing.
So actually, plans are still being made for to increase your not-for-profit and your business. 2 plans of, like you mentioned, I mentioned about 5 or 10 years from now that you plan to. You mentioned about where you plan to be.
Yeah, you know what? I would love to go back to California, but I have to ask permission. So if God will allow me, I would love to go back to California and do work there. But that's not up to me. It's up to him and my wife. but if he would allow that, I would love that. But I believe that as believers, you mentioned politics, we should be in Hollywood, we should be in every arena, we should be in music. We shouldn't be scared. I think that we have this typical, substandard way of living as far as believers where we can't do anything to get outside this box or else it's sin. We can't, we have to do, I believe, I've been called to do the work of evangelist and make full proof of my ministry. You have to be able to reach people with wisdom. And I believe that the wisdom of God has given us is to go into every arena and speak their language and to win souls for Christ.
Okay, so actually recidivism, the rate is still high as far as recidivism is concerned.
Yes, it is.
And once you get felony on your record, it's very difficult to get it removed, right?
Very difficult.
Almost a pardon, presidential pardon or governor's pardon or whatever.
You can get your record expunged or sealed. People are moving towards getting their records sealed now because expungement takes a while, but I'm telling you can do both. Once you get in the system, even if you plea and you don't go to jail or prison, you still have a record.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that, so they just plea out like I did. And when you plea, you have a record, or you may take less time than was offered to you, but now, for the rest of your life, you're a convicted felon. And it's a sad thing. I mean, you can become a congressman and then you'll hear these words, oh, but he's a convicted felon. I just heard recently this celebrity, she ended up with someone, and this is her new man, so to speak, and then they found out he was a convicted felon. And so, and this could be from years back. So, I really believe, once you get in the system, that's why we have to speak to our youth and tell them and educate them on what to say or what not to say when getting pulled over, and not to just, in high school get arrested, or when you do know who to talk to, or do you have an attorney. I found out about the legal system you pay $17 for and get an attorney a month. There's certain things you can do. And so if we educate ourselves and keep our young people out of the system, that would help them from getting a life sentence, which I call it a life sentence because it's there for the rest of your life.
And we have more women now being in prison than ever before. More prisons have been built for women too, and that's sad too.
It's very sad, and we now have to pray more now than ever for our women, especially for ethnicities, and it's just a sad case that we're seeing. But I do believe greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. I believe that if God be for me, who can be against me? I believe that we can actually make a difference in spite of what we see.
Mr. Moore, we want to thank you very much. It's been a great program, and I'm sure our listening audience have been benefited by it. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking with George Moore Jr. Mentioned at the top of the program, he's a servant of God, is a founder and executive director of Legacy Reentry Foundation in Lake County. This has been Community Forum. My name is Dr. Waddell Brooks Sr., your host.